Hi.
Oh my god. That actually hurts some. I'm getting better from pneumonia currently, so honestly I probably shouldn't have done that at all. Like the title says, I'm scared of AI. It could possibly be a bit more accurate to say I hate AI. Both of these are true. I have a lot of ethical concerns around it. I have a lot of concerns about the artists that's work is being taken. I have a lot of concerns about the environment and how much energy and water it uses. But I feel like when it comes to the topic of AI and food, you start breaching into concerns of people's safety, which isn't solely something that rests with AI and food, but definitely it partially does, you know? I mean, we've seen some safety concerns arising when it comes to things like character AI. Some image generators are able to create things that are vile and could certainly be upsetting to a lot of people, endangering them. But with food, it comes a direct danger. We're talking about recipes that could be hazardous to somebody, nutritional facts that could be incorrect. But I feel like a lot of this really can circle back into some things that are a bit more simple. You know, AI videos like the ones that you just saw a couple seconds ago are still normalizing the use of AI and food together, even if they're fucking weird. But it's something that I do feel like is a danger, and I want to talk about that. I don't know what song that is, but I really like that. That's fun. So what is it that AI cooking videos are modeled off of? The ones that I showed you, as an example, were all vertical, so we can assume that they're going to maybe be YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, TikToks, which isn't insane to think. There's a lot of cooking content on all of those. People like to show off their cooking online, and I think that that is currently a very popular format for it to be in. So people who are using AI to generate that are going to reflect on that. That's how it works. But not all of them are necessarily going to be in a vertical format. Some of the ones that I found that aren't are definitely a little bit more disturbing, in my opinion. Using real people's faces. That grosses me out. I'm not a fan. But nevertheless, we're going to be looking specifically more at that vertical format, ones that are probably being pulled from TikToks and YouTube and Instagram. So when it comes to some of the norms that we're going to be finding within this medium of cooking video, it's going to be a lot of vertical formatted videos. Like I said, that's just going to be what sells well on those platforms. Not YouTube as a whole, of course. YouTube Shorts, keep in mind. Something that's going to be popular could be narrating what you're doing or playing music over it. That's going to be pretty typical, but when looking at the visual aspect, a lot of it is going to be the camera work. Obviously, you're going to want to keep very focused on what it is you're currently doing, maybe on the bowl you're pouring something into, the pan you're cooking in, whatever it ends up being. Your hands are certainly going to get in the shot a little. You should be able to see the food going into whatever container it's in, and the action of it working. Something that's very common is going to be doing a lot of hard cuts between steps, because you're not going to need to see everything happen, and if you did, that would be far longer than these formats would allow for. I mean, I know that TikTok has started allowing like really long videos onto the site, but YouTube Shorts is just what it says, short, and I don't think Instagram Reels allows for very long videos at all either. And usually if you're making a video for one of these platforms, you're going to want to cross it onto the others as well. So something shorter does well, so the hard cuts do well. Creators have the option to do a lot of very fun and unique things when it comes to this format. They can choose to create their own persona, their own style of the way that they frame their shots. They can choose to show their face or to not show their face. I mean, I feel like all of us saw at least one video from that one chef a while back who was like really weirdly intimate with his food. I didn't like that was the way that he was, but you know, I saw those videos. I saw those. It's videos like these and like his that are the ones that are being scraped for these AI image generators. When I say scraped, I mean those are the ones that are being taken almost always without their permission or consent for that. That is one of the main ethical concerns that comes up whenever people are talking about AI. Your work could end up going into it without you even knowing. I mean, I don't mean to be grim here, but if you're watching this video and you've posted anything online ever, it's more than likely that your stuff has been put into an AI image generator as well. Not as something that necessarily is specifically being based off of, but something that is being used to help it learn. The way that generative AI works is there's going to be two phases, the identification phase and the generation phase. The identification phase can work in a lot of different ways. You're going to have the AI learn something in some sort of specific way. It can be aided, unaided, or it can learn through rewards. So if it's aided, that means that information that is given to it is going to be labeled. If you have an image of a cat, it will be labeled as a cat. If you have an image of a dog, it will be labeled as a dog, so on and so forth. So then the AI will know that this goes into this category and that goes into that category. It's able to just sort it very easily. If it is unaided, then that means that there's going to be no labels on the images. So there will be a cat and there will be a dog, but it's up to the AI to figure out which one is which will mean that it's going to start learning the traits of the cats or dogs. Now, the AI cannot literally see the cats and dogs in front of it. It does, however, have access to the pixels that are on the screen. It's able to understand the color that it is, it's able to understand the value, a lot of different information about the specific pixels, and then it can learn information about the way that the pixels are arranged in reference to each other. So let's look at the muzzles of a cat and a dog. A cat's muzzle is going to definitely be a lot smaller, it's going to have a different shaped nose, and it's going to have whiskers, whereas a dog's muzzle is going to be larger, have a bit of a larger, definitely different shaped nose, and typically will not have any sort of whiskers, or the whiskers will be a lot less visible. Now, an AI image generator will pick up on that in the training phase, and it will be able to start sorting the dogs and cats into specific categories based off of that information. If the AI is learning through rewards, though, and this is a very effective way to do it, then once it has sorted based off of that information, still without the label, it will then be given a reward if it sorts it correctly, or it will be given a penalty if it sorts it incorrectly. These aren't necessarily literal, but it's essentially saying to the AI, you've done well or you've done poorly, which will help it remember and learn for the next times. So it has more incentive to be getting it correct, and it will be more likely to get it correct as time goes on. Regardless of which of these processes are chosen, it's going to be repeated until the AI can accurately identify certain things. The reason that we've seen such a boom in AI in the past few years is because this identification stage has gotten a lot better. It could be the difference between those DALL-E images we saw back in 2022 versus some of the Mid-Journey ones we see nowadays. Things have indisputably improved in terms of what AI image generators can do, and in the same way, they've improved with AI video. Before we start getting super into AI video, though, we should talk a little bit about the generation phase that the AI has to go through. For generation to work, it needs the identification process to be backing it up. Once everything has been sorted and identified into the AI's dataset, it will then be able to move on to that generation phase, assuming it is a generative AI in the first place. So it's going to pool a lot of that information based off the prompt that you're giving it, and then add some noise inside, which will be where you get some of that weirdness and some of that randomness, and it also is what creates a unique image instead of just a collage of multiple pre-existing images. It's where a lot of people say the creativity lies inside the AI. Let's say, based off our cat and dog example that was going on earlier, that you did want to generate a cat, like, riding a skateboard or something. Well, the AI is going to have a lot of that information about the cats. There's a lot of cat photos online, and it will have that information about skateboards, probably also a lot of skateboard information and photos online. So it will be able to understand what a cat looks like, what a skateboard looks like, and it will be able to mesh the two together using the noise to create the cat riding the skateboard. And the noise will also fill in other information that may have been very collaged together before to create the unique image. This is what the Stable Diffusion model essentially is, and it's what a lot of AI generators as a whole rely on, not just image generators. Your language learning models are also going to have similar things that work with them. It's just a bit of a different process because we don't have images involved, just chunks of text instead. This Stable Diffusion model is used for a lot of AI-generated work, including the cooking videos that you saw at the beginning of the video, or at least very likely those cooking videos. So when it comes to AI cooking videos, I find them incredibly easy to identify personally. It's going to vary from person to person, depending on a lot of things, I think, but for the most part, it'll be pretty easy to tell. I think that most people find them, at the very least, incredibly unsettling, even if they have a harder time telling. A lot of comments under them are going to be like, oh, am I high right now? Or like, what's going on? Why does it look like that? Why are faces popping up in it? A lot of things that are very much disgusted, horrified, confused at the very least, and I get that. The first time I saw a AI cooking video, out of the blue, I was like, baffled, confused, definitely scared a little bit, because they look horrible. And I mean, that's part of it. I feel like everyone very naturally knows what cooking looks like. Even if you've never cooked yourself necessarily, you've seen somebody else cook before. Be that whoever it is in your life that you've watched cook. You've seen it happen. Baking too. You know the way that powder ends up falling, you know the way that liquid gets incorporated into things, you know what stirring looks like, you know how bread or something rises in an oven. You understand how it should look, even if you don't do it yourself. And that's where AI cooking videos get it so wrong. An AI can understand what something looks like. It has a large amount of data to pull from when it comes to the identification of something, but the generation of something is completely different. It has so much data, but that means it's also going to capture some of those things that are just ever so slightly off in the data, or things that are completely wrong altogether. Like I said, a lot of cooking videos, the comments under them, when it's AI cooking videos, will end up having questions about why faces are popping up in them. And the reason those faces are going to pop up is because AI generative tools are very much pattern recognition tools. That's what the identification part of them instills. And even if it's not going to be a large part of the data set when it comes to cooking videos, faces are still going to pop up in them all the time. A face is going to pop up in an AI cooking video very frequently because of this as well. When it comes to cooking videos, sometimes people will be showing their faces, and that's how that gets into the data set. So if an AI is generating a cooking video and it ends up seeing a pattern that looks like it could be a face, oftentimes that will end up going into the video itself. And that's just going to be based off of the highlights and the shadows and the contrast between the two and the hues of the dough or the batter or whatever it ends up being, and a face will pop up. And it's incredibly disturbing, and I hate it. It's why I think that knowing what cooking looks like is incredibly innate. Because we can see that obviously, and say it looks wrong. It's a face popping up in my dough. Get the face out of my dough. If you put your face in my dough, I think I'd be pretty upset. No matter what type of dough it is. That's unhygienic at the end of the day. But when it comes to AI, there's a face rising out of my dough. Feels like a whole other type of issue. This is not expiration date. I do not want that bread to come to life. I don't think they did either. A lot of other issues end up arising when it comes to AI in cooking videos as well. When we see animated cooking, like maybe in your favorite Studio Ghibli film, Turning Red is a great example, you're going to notice that even if it's not real, obviously, it looks very naturalistic. It looks very beautiful. They capture the minutiae of cooking and make it something that is very appreciated, handled beautifully, in my opinion. I like animation. They end up handling it in a way that shows you that they know what cooking should look like. They understand the way that powder falls, liquids stir, vegetables get chopped, things heat up and boil. It all works out so nicely, and it creates this beautiful, beautiful finished video work. And AI can't do that. When it comes to AI cooking videos, maybe the powder will be falling in a very cone-like manner, almost too perfect, Whereas maybe if you're cooking in real life, it's obviously going to be a little bit lopsided. Something might fall a bit more to one side than another. It might be a little bit flat on the top just because maybe too much flops out at one time from your cup, your measuring cup, or any other host of reasons. It's never going to be perfect. Also, you can never see the source of where something is getting poured from in these AI cooking videos. Part of that could be because what's basing itself off of, which is going to be a lot of YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, TikTok videos, they might be pouring from out of frame, which I don't think would be too uncommon, but it does leave it being very eerie when it comes to AI-generated cooking videos, because you can't see the source, and a lot of times you can't even see the stream of where it's coming from. Or if you can, it's very brief or not all the way, so it ends up being just like this sort of like addition that sort of flutters in. I don't like that. I'm personally not a fan. And this happens as well for liquids. But what really gets me, even if you can't notice these discrepancies in the physics, is the stirring. In almost every case that I've seen, they always mess up the stirring. They can never get it quite right. I think this could be for a lot of reasons. You're going to be stirring with a lot of different things when you're cooking. It could be a wooden spoon, a metal spoon, a whisk. I don't even know. There's a lot of options for what you could be using to mix things together. A stand mixer, even. I'm saying the word mix so much you think that stand mixer would come into it. But an AI isn't really going to process all of that. It does to an extent when it's identifying all these different cooking videos and it's putting it into its data set. It's going to recognize that these are different things that are stirring, but it might not necessarily recognize why you'd be using different ones or the minutiae between them. And so you end up getting some very strange looking stirring segments in these cooking videos. This is also where faces pop up the most. I'm sorry to keep on coming back to the faces thing. I just really hate the faces thing. It disturbs me quite a lot. So stirring in these videos is going to end up looking very strange, partially because it's going to be different utensils used in the data set, but also because when you are stirring, if you are cooking, you're never going to be stirring fully at the same speed, at the same level the entire time. You're going to end up having to take out your spoon for various different things. Maybe to scrape some of the dry ingredient on the edge of the bowl to get into the center, or maybe you really need to focus on incorporating your wets and your dries together, so you're going to really be like lifting it up a good bit, or even then, you're just not level with your spoon. You need to be stirring at the top sometimes, and you need to be scraping at the bottom sometimes. Your spoon isn't going to be level, but it is going to, for the most part, be moving in a way that makes sense. I mean, I don't know, some people like lift out their spoons and lick them. I think that's unhygienic and gross, but you know, you do you. You do you. You're cooking for yourself, I hope, if you're doing that sort of thing. But AI doesn't understand the why of why your spoon would be coming out of the batter or why it'd be moving to different levels. It just knows that it happens. And so it happens at very strange intervals in AI cooking videos, and it also happens in very unnaturalistic ways. The spoon sort of jittering between levels. Sometimes, even if a new powder or liquid is getting poured in, it will literally jitter between levels, going from being buried under something to sort of steadily rising up to the top in a way that disturbs me, again, because I know what cooking looks like, I know what baking looks like, and that's not it. That's never it. I don't like that. It's why cooking videos, AI cooking videos, just mess me up so much more than most other types, because cooking is so human. I've driven this point home, but cooking is so human. It's one of the reasons that we are as we are. The ability to be able to heat up food and make it good and incorporate a lot of different things, that's culture, that's survival, that's just being alive. It's one of my favorite parts about being human. I love food so much. I could eat for days. I got crackers right behind me that I'm going to tear up later. I have cheese balls under my bed. I have a cup of tea with me right now. I have Sour Patch watermelon on my desk. I didn't even know I had that. I have a bunch of like can tabs of different drinks I've drunk in a glass jar that used to have red pickled onions. I love food. I think most people can attest that they probably love food as well. Food is just part of being alive and human, and an AI can't get that. It just can't. An AI has never eaten before, but it has all these images of people eating. It's never cooked before, but has all these images of people cooking. And it has never made anything, but it has so many recipes at its disposal. I hate that. It's not for it. it's never been for it. It's a human experience that is one of the ones that's getting so incredibly tainted by AI, and it upsets me. But that barely scratches the surface of why I hate AI and cooking meshing together so much. Oh, that barely scratches the surface. So why is it that people like food-based entertainment in the first place? If we're talking about AI in food, and we're talking about AI-generated food videos right now, then entertainment is going to come into that. I think that a lot of people do watch food entertainment as a whole to be entertained, obviously. People like to watch Guy Fieri and Gordon Ramsay and a lot of other creators to be able to see what they're doing. It's entertaining, they have very interesting personas they put on for the screen, and I think that people enjoy watching that. Otherwise there wouldn't be any audience. According to Isabelle Cuykx and her associates, however, there may be other reasons for this. They decided that they wanted to figure out why people like food-based entertainment, and so they created a bunch of focus groups together and started looking into it a little bit. And they discussed this information in a little research paper called The Magic is in the Mix, a uses and gratifications approach to the cross-media use of food-related media content. Inside of those focus groups, they were asking people why they, in particular, liked watching food video, food shows, baking shows, anything like that. And what they ended up finding out from these people was that it wasn't purely just entertainment to them. They watched it because they wanted to learn. They wanted to learn to cook better, they wanted to learn different techniques, they wanted to learn what the food community was like as a whole. A lot of it was education for these people. And I find that very interesting when it comes to AI-generated food content, because at the end of the day, AI can't teach you anything. The techniques it's using aren't real, because no one's actually cooking it. Neither are the recipes that they're using. I mean, you saw the videos that I was showing earlier. There wasn't any recipe there. You can't learn anything from an AI food video. So I personally believe that the only reason that they exist is to be a little bit weird and disgusting, creepy. There's really no other reason for them to be around, which is very defeatist. In my opinion, it's defeating the entire point of food entertainment. I think that's sad. I've never been super huge on food entertainment in the first place. I like MasterChef as much as the next guy, same with Kitchen Nightmares. But, you know, I watch it because it's on. I don't usually ever actively seek it out. Sorry if, like, Gordon Ramsay's kids are watching this or something, but you know what I mean. It's entertaining to me. And I definitely agree with the idea of watching it to learn something. But I'm upset with the fact that AI is using this sort of media as just a way to be disgusting. The people generating this AI stuff anyways. But at the end of the day, it's not much of a danger. And while it is freaky, and the images it shows can definitely be scary, it's not the reason I'm scared of AI and food meshing together. It definitely goes a bit deeper than that for me. I'm not completely stupid when it comes to cooking and baking. I've cooked and baked before, and it's not something I super love doing, but I find it enjoyable every now and then. My family, unironically, uses HelloFresh. I have very mixed feelings about it, but we use it. And, you know, I've learned to cook with it, for sure. I think that there's merit to it. It's taught me a lot of recipes and a lot of techniques I wouldn't have learned otherwise. And I think that there's a lot of importance to that. I was able to start cooking at a younger age than a lot of my peers were able to, and that's something I take a bit of pride in. And I do. And at the end of the day, some of the recipes that HelloFresh had were genuinely pretty good. Some of them weren't, for sure, but I usually enjoyed what they had to put on the table. Literally and metaphorically. I never will do this again. But all this is to say, I think that human-made recipes are wonderful. I would never be able to make a recipe myself. I wouldn't even know where to start. But I really do appreciate what is out there for people to be learning and cooking with. I think there's a lot of love put into a lot of them. AI makes recipes too, did you know that? a guy called Andrew Olson created this particular site called DishGen. It is an AI site that is specifically made to give you quick and easy recipes, a lot of them with very minimal ingredients. Before he made DishGen, he was the owner of a site called The One Ingredient Chef. What he did there was that he made a lot of recipes that were usually keto-friendly or gluten-friendly, safe for lactose-intolerant people, whatever, and they had very few ingredients. They're supposed to be good recipes and ones that would be healthy and safe for a lot of people. And I respect him for that. I think there's a lot of good in it. And he created DishGen to be able to do a very similar thing for people. But even he admitted that he found what he made to be both exciting and terrifying at the same time. And dude, how could you say that? You made the thing. You made the thing. First of all, you're putting yourself out of a job here, kinda, when it comes to your one ingredient chef thing, but you made the AI and you could have chosen to stop at any point during that process and you just didn't. That's 100% on you, my guy. You have only yourself to blame there. Sorry. Well, another thing that he said is that while it took him years to create hundreds of recipes before, the AI was able to make thousands in just minutes. Again, this is your fault. You are putting yourself out of a job very literally. What are you doing, Andrew? What the hell? Well, I was very curious about what was going on DishGen, so I started sleuthing around a little bit, looking at some of the recipes that were posted there. And one that caught my eye was one for blueberry muffins made with monk fruit sweetener, instead of standard sugar. And I've never heard of monk fruit sweetener before. And also, like I said, I'm not a huge baker. I do a little bit of baking, a little bit of cooking. So I sent it to a friend of mine who does a lot more cooking and baking than I do. Thank you, Salem. And what they ended up telling me was that this recipe definitely looked very off. Now, again, it's AI generated, and I did not tell them that when I initially showed it to them. They sleuthed it out, though. And a few things that they told me was that from the looks of things, the batter looked like it would end up being very, very wet. There was a quarter cup of unsweetened almond milk and coconut oil, which is a lot of wet ingredients for muffins, according to them. They also said that the wording was very strange. The person baking it was being asked to beat the eggs and other ingredients rather than whisk them, which would be the more typical wording. And when I asked them what the significance of that was, I honestly don't very much understand the difference. But they said it was important. So even if those differences are relatively small compared to a whole recipe, I do think it's important to be brought up. I mean, someone's cooking with this, and the small differences can certainly matter. Another thing they told me ended up being that they thought there was very little sweetener in the recipe as a whole. I did end up looking up this one afterwards because I was confused about what monk fruit sweetener in particular was. And it turns out that it is actually a lot sweeter than your typical sugar would be. I couldn't tell you though. I've never used it. I've never had it. That would be outside of my range. I just have a bunch of Splenda here. Off-brand Splenda, even. Because I make a lot of tea and, some honey as well, like the bear things they got mad at in the Bee movie. So what do I really know? But that's what it said when I looked it up online. I mean, at the end of the day, this recipe could be quite safe. I would have no way of knowing unless I made it myself. This would be where a cutaway would typically be to me actively cooking this thing in a fun little cooking segment. I live in a college dorm though, and the only oven in the college dorms apparently broke literally 2 days ago from now. So I am not currently of the means to be able to bake anything like this. Sarky. Out of curiosity, I ended up doing a little, very small questionnaire and sent it out to a good few people to ask them what their thoughts about AI and food were. For full disclosure, most of the people who ended up filling this out were college-age people, so probably haven't done a lot of cooking themselves and probably haven't tampered around a lot with specifically AI and food. So the results are probably going to be kind of skewed from both of those factors. Keep that in mind. I only ended up getting 26 responses, which was definitely less than I wanted, but I did still learn some pretty good information from this. The first thing is, a lot of college-age people, the people who I got for this, ended up saying that they did not at all trust, or would not at all trust, an AI-generated recipe. They almost all said a 1 or a 2 on a scale of 1 to 5 on their ranking of trust for that. And only one person rated a 4 on that scale of everyone that was asked. So already we're seeing some pretty strong results there. And then I also ended up asking them if they would trust AI-generated nutritional facts. You know, if you're to ask how much a handful of almonds might be, and trust the information it gives you. And again, most people ended up being a 1 or a 2. They did not trust this, with only one person being a 4 again. So it goes to show that at least younger people do not trust the stuff that AI is giving to them. It's not something that they see as something that they want to be putting faith in. And I understand that. I am in agreement with them. I don't think that I can trust a computer to give me accurate information about something so complex as food. The food that I'm going to be ingesting, especially. You know, that's the sort of thing I go to Reddit for. Come on, dude. It also ended up being true that a lot of people who I did give the survey to ended up saying that they had never used AI for any sort of thing that was cooking related. 3 people ended up saying that they did, though. All of them said that they ended up using AI to generate recipes for them. One person said they never ended up using theirs in particular, though. And one person ended up saying that they did something similar to what would happen on DishGen, where they gave it specific ingredients that they had with specific dietary restrictions and ended up receiving a recipe. But they also said they weren't very satisfied with what they had. So it goes to show. And again, these are college-age people, so I don't really think that there would be a lot of resources for them to be cooking for themselves in any sort of elaborate way. Most of what we do is ramen in a bowl. So, shrug. I do think this is all fairly important information, though. Even if it is from younger people who aren't necessarily doing a lot of AI-generated stuff, it goes to show that there isn't a high level of trust when it comes to AI and food. I think that's something that's really important to be looking at. And I think that it's a good thing as a whole. I think that's part of my whole purpose of talking about this. If there are concerns about the safety of AI, period, then I'm happy to see that a lot of people are diverting themselves from that danger. I think that's a really noble and important thing to be happening. I feel like no matter how small the research I did was, it does reflect the findings of someone who's probably a lot smarter than me. The man, the myth, the legend, Giovanbattista, Califano, and all of his buddies, more formally et al., ended up looking into whether people trust AI-generated recipes more if it's a traditional recipe or a non-traditional recipe as compared to human-made recipes. So, look at it this way. You have 2 human-made recipes for, let's say, blueberry muffins, since we were looking at that earlier. Just a regular recipe for blueberry muffins, and then the monk fruit ones for blueberry muffins. One of those is traditional, one of them is non-traditional. Then you ask an AI to generate the same 2 recipes. Obviously it's not going to be the exact same as the human-made ones, but you're going to have one that is traditional and one that is not traditional. Standard blueberry muffins versus monk fruit blueberry muffins. So, you're then going to ask the people to read through those recipes and say which ones they would trust. They know which ones are AI, they know which ones are human, and you see what they think. It did end up being the case that people would generally trust the traditional recipe at the same scale, whether it was AI or human-made, but they would trust a human to make a non-traditional recipe a lot more than they would trust an AI. So it goes to show that even in people of much more varying age, much more varying identity, you're going to find that people do not trust at least AI to make something that is innovative and new, which makes a lot of sense. Online, there's going to be a lot of information about things that are more traditional and less about things that are more experimental. So, if you are someone that is generating something with an AI, you're going to be safer off to be asking for something that's more standard. I think that's what the study ends up reflecting, and I think that ends up backing up the stuff that I found. People don't put a lot of trust into the new things that are being made with AI. And I still think that's very good. I mean, I'm very skeptical about it as a whole, so I'm biased, but you know. Oh. So I had to write an essay about this, and I'm presenting it now in this format because I think that'd be really fun and cool and just a fun thing to do. I like video essays, why not make one? And, I just have it off to the side to reference for certain parts. That's why you're seeing me glance over every now and then. And I just got to, the part, oh my god. So, I wrote where I'm supposed to begin in this essay, of course, but god, I don't know where to begin. I don't know where to begin. It's important to note, when talking about AI recipes, that they don't exist in isolation, just like recipes that we make typically don't. You're going to find them in cookbooks or food blogs, Food Network shows. They're going to be clustered together in some sort of way. The same goes for AI-generated recipes. I was doing a little bit of digging for another topic I wanted to do. This digging specifically was looking for a good photo of spilt baked beans. I'm not really going to get into the why of that, but the point is I was scrolling Google Images for a very long time looking for anything that was what I wanted. And I didn't end up finding it, but I did end up finding the most egregious AI-generated image I think I've ever seen. It had all the hallmarks. One thing that was interesting about it, though, was that it looked a lot like the style of, a WikiHow article's images. I found it really funny, and I was wondering where it had come from. So, I click on it, and I go and look, and it turns out it was from a food blog. Which is confusing to me. I feel like it's really easy to buy a can of baked beans if you're a food blog. I feel like, honestly, it'd probably be something that you have on hand. Especially because this food blog was a Texan food blog. If I know one thing about Southern cooking, it's that we love our baked beans. We love our baked beans. So, I was curious as to where this was going. I was curious how much of their website relied on AI-generated stuff. Maybe it was just this one author. But I started looking, and there was no author on this article. Which is weird. I feel like that's a really, strong sign that you shouldn't be looking too deeply into this website. But I looked much more deeply into this website. I ended up going down to the recipes tab, because that's where I felt like I would find specific authorship. You want to know who's made a specific recipe, because if you like this one recipe from this one person, you want to try and find all their other ones. And so, I was scrolling, and I saw a lot more of those AI-generated images. So I was like, okay, this has been a thing for them for a bit. Keep on looking through all the different pages, until I finally find some that look real at first glance. And I realized, no, that's still AI. It's just a different style. Almost all of them so far had been that WikiHow style, whereas these were much more realistic, which is how my eye had sort of glanced over them at first. And it turns out, around mid-November of 2022, they had just completely stopped making articles, and instead swapped fully to AI. Part of how I could tell was because you start getting 4 posts in a day on the food blog, rather than the 1 or 2 per week you had been getting prior. It's clear that this was in some way, shape, or form beneficial to them and their business. Oh no. So I decided, okay, let's do a little bit of a deeper dive. I'm still curious about this. Maybe the images aren't AI and I'm wrong. Let's talk about AI identification. When it comes to images, it can be hard sometimes. AI is only getting better and better as it gets more information. Like I said with the datasets earlier, the more information it can get for the identification stage, the better the generative stage is going to be. And, of course, I'm not going to deny that this is definitely a self-cannibalizing thing, because more AI images are going to get put into those datasets over time, and it will start ruining stuff. This is true, and it's something that has already been seen. But, as it stands right now, AI generation is quite good. So let's look at how to tell when an image is AI. I'm going to put an image up onto the screen that is one that I found on this website, Texas Real Food. It was on an article called Goat Cheese Strawberry Pecan Salad. It was a recipe for that salad in particular. So, a lot of things ring the alarm for me in this image. One of the main ones is the focal length. So the way that photography works is that you're going to have one focal length per photo. You can only have one thing that is going to be in focus. So, back to me. Hi. I'm recording this, maybe surprisingly, on a properly nice camera right now. Thank you to my friend who just gave it to me out of the blue. Saffron, you're awesome. But I'm on a proper camera right now, so I can hopefully demonstrate this. I'm going to assume that I'm in focus right now. If I'm not, I will be sad. I'll be sad. But if I put my hand out like this, then it should be blurred compared to my face, which should be focused. Or vice versa. I think this thing has an autofocus. I'm not judging. Some proper photographers might judge, but I'm not. But only one thing can be in focus at a time. If it's my hand, then it will be much more crisp than my face will. If it's my face, it will be much more crisp than my hand will. But if something were level with my face, at the same position as it, then it would definitely end up being more crisp than what's at the front. That's because of the focal length. And other factors, but primarily focal length is going to determine what is blurry and what is not. When it comes to AI images, though, you don't end up getting that. They weren't taken with an actual camera, so sometimes the focal length ends up being very off. In this photo in particular, you can see that a strawberry that's right at the edge of the frame ends up being very in focus, similar to the ones that are towards the middle of the frame, even though they're on obviously different levels. That's one really clear sign to me that this is an AI-generated image, because you couldn't get that if it were a photograph, which is obviously what's tried to emulate, being a more realistic image. Also, I can take a look at the strawberries and pecans. Both of them are of unnatural shapes to what they should be. I mean, obviously they're cut up strawberries, so they do look a little bit different, but you can see that some of them are obviously meant to be showing some of the center, and I'm not the world's biggest strawberry fan, but this is not what a strawberry looks like. The final thing that sets me off, and this is something that sets off a lot of people when it comes to AI identification, is the lighting. Usually, one thing that you can find is that there's going to be multiple different light sources, which will mean that light is hitting things in a large variety of ways, sometimes impossibly. It's a lot easier to point this out when it comes to things that look more illustrated or more artistic when it comes to AI, but you can see it in things that are emulating photographs as well. I'm going to go ahead and just circle a few of the areas that are showing that a little bit more. Excellent! So, on the whole, this is an AI-generated image. But part of my concern is how easily can people identify when it comes to food being AI-generated. I think a lot of people are more easily able to identify when it comes to faces or living things. You hit the uncanny valley when you get those wrong. What about food? Luckily, my little 26-person questionnaire also covered this topic. So when I made this questionnaire, I did have the question of how easily can people identify AI-generated food images in mind, so I put in a few questions about that. A little quiz, if you will, which I would be happy to lead you guys through if you were interested. But first, I asked them to identify, just for themselves, how confident they are that they can identify AI images in the first place. So we ended up getting a wide range of answers when it comes to that. Most people did lie much more in the middle. Only 4 people ended up ranking themselves either a 1 or a 5. Most people of those 4 saying that they were a 5, that they could absolutely identify something was made by AI or not. But the majority of people ended up being a 4, fairly confident that they'd be able to do that. So, after they identified that, I asked them to take a little quiz. 10 questions long, and like I said, join in with me. I'm going to go ahead and put those images up really quickly, and if you would like to go ahead and participate, feel free. If you want to skip past it, go ahead. There are going to be some AI images in here. There are going to be some real images in here. Try and identify them. Have fun. So most people doing that little quiz ended up getting 7 of them correct, which is pretty good. I ended up getting one person who got 5 correct and 5 wrong. I know who that person is. Love ya, Sky. Congrats, buddy. That was the lowest score. But congratulations, buddy. And I ended up getting 3 people who got all of them correct. Everything else fell between those 2 ranges. But like I said, 7 was the most. So I'm now going to put up on the screen which ones were AI and which ones were not, so you can look at your own score as well. Don't know how you did, but you know, you could put it in the comment section. Oh, I'm like a proper YouTuber saying that one. I'm like a proper YouTuber saying that one. Oh! I thought the day would never come. So I think it was really important to be able to look at that information. If people are more accurately able to identify when things are AI, it'll mean that they're just going to be a little bit more cognizant to misinformation online. Because at the end of the day, AI can be a huge proponent for misinformation. I mean, it's not real. It absolutely is not real. No human hand touched it. So people can use it to spread whatever falsehoods they want to, as long as the AI will generate that image for them. This was a little bit of a tangent though, so we can go ahead and move on. So back to Texas Real Food. I ended up looking at the blog that was underneath that salad recipe, and the text all just seemed slightly off to me. The way that AI text works is somewhat similar to the images, where it will look at these chunks of text and see what letters are commonly forming what words, and what words are commonly found next to each other. It's just prediction. This is sometimes why you can get AI spelling things wrong, especially if the dataset gets corrupted or it gets infiltrated with more and more things generated by AI, but it is fairly uncommon for it to spell things wrong. It's data, and as long as the data that is put into it isn't spelling things wrong, then the output won't be either. But this text gave me alarm bells because, again, the way AI stuff works is that it's all predictive. You give it a line to work off of, and it will just create lines afterwards. In the same way that if you're just pressing the autocomplete button on your own text messages, the center button right there, it will just go crazy. So that's what this writing reminded me of, and I needed to dive a little bit deeper. So I ended up putting a paragraph into an AI checker and got back that it was 100% AI generated. So I thought, okay, your images are AI generated, your blog is AI generated, your recipes probably are too. Which is so cool and so great, actually. I broadened my search on this site a little bit more because I was very curious and at this point very concerned. Even if this was at one point a legitimate food blog, it is now a food blog mimicking as something that is official, something that is proper. And I think that's scummy as fuck. I think that's scummy. This is all just AI generated slop that could, at this point, be endangering somebody. They don't know the actual safety of these recipes, but it looks like a recipe that is being vetted as safe by this blog that has some trust behind it. I mean, I looked at the social media sites that were surrounding this blog. Their Instagram, they have a Tumblr, they have a Facebook. They seem fairly well received. I was confused. So I decided to broaden my search on this site a little bit more. And I ended up finding a recipe for a quick fix burrito bowl, and I was very happy to see that what looked like a real image was above the recipe that they provided. Finally, this was an indicator to me this could very well be a real recipe that these people made. So I remained skeptical, just out of caution at this point, and decided to put that into reverse image search. And I found a few other instances of that photo popping up, which immediately sank my spirits. One of them was on a college newspaper's Facebook page. Another was on a pattern for a puzzle sold on Amazon. And the final one was on a different food site. This food site is called Fit Food Meals. And from the looks of things, they are a website that sells and ships pre-made meals to be reheated and eaten. And they offer, very happily to me, nutritional information about their meals. So I decided to compare the information on Texas Real Food and the information on Fresh Fit meals together, considering that they were using the same image. And when I say I did it, I really meant that I had a conversation with that same friend who told me about the blueberry muffin recipe, thank you Salem, to be able to find out, thank you Salem, to be able to find out which ones seemed more accurate. So we're looking at the Quick Fix Burrito Bowl on Texas Real Food versus the Pollo Asado Chicken Taco Bowl over on Fit Food Meals. Comparing the nutritional information, it was made really clear to me that Texas Real Food's information was probably AI generated, which we're going to get into. Texas Real Food said that their burrito bowl had 79 grams of protein, 140 carbs, and 77 grams of fat. Meanwhile, Fit Food Meals Taco Bowl had 42 grams of protein, 35 carbs, and 18 grams of fat. To me, this shows where the danger really seeps in when it comes to AI-generated food, recipes, nutritional information, all of it. Those are two wildly different pieces of nutritional information. And looking at Fit Food Meals, they have actual footing. They are real. Whereas Texas Real Food, I can't trust anything I'm seeing on their site. None of it looks legitimate. None of it is giving me a reason to believe it is legitimate. I mean, they just stolen this photo from this other website in the first place to give themselves more legitimacy. That's terrible. And then to put AI nutritional information underneath that. I hate to get personal here. I don't hate to get personal here, but I hate to get personal here. My sister is a type 1 diabetic. If she sees a recipe and it's telling her that if she makes it in this particular way, no substitutions, that this is going to be how many carbs she needs to put in, and it's too much, that's dangerous for her. Same if it's too little. She puts in her carbs and that is set. That's how much insulin is going to be given to her. Her body can't do what mine can, where it's just going to equal it out no matter what. My sister would be in danger if she stumbled across one of these recipes and just trusted it, which I'm sure she might do. If not my sister, then certainly someone else who needs to stick to a very specific diet for whatever reason. There are a lot of reasons. There's a real danger here. And sadly, not everyone sees that. Researcher Urooj disagrees with me about all of this. He believes that AI should be trusted to give people nutritional advice on the whole. I think that's stupid. I really think that's stupid. That's dangerous. I feel like the nutritional information being so different on both of these sites shows how that's dangerous. I'm a big fan of video essays. I'm a big fan of watching them. And while some people wouldn't consider this a video essay because it is shorter than the average, there's this one video by very popular YouTuber Danny Gonzalez where he's talking about this AI pin. It's just a little pin that you put on your shirt. It's powered by AI. And one of the things that this thing is supposed to do is you can hold up food to it, and it will look at it, and it will tell you what the nutritional information about it is. I'm going to play the clip.
How much protein?
These almonds have 15 grams of protein.
Great.
Those almonds for sure do not have 15 grams of protein. An entire cup of almonds has 20 grams of protein. This dude was holding like 9 almonds. Did I think he was asking about his whole hand? Because that actually might be accurate.
Like I said before, I don't know much about nutritional information. That's not really in this brain right here. But I definitely do know that if it's getting that so wildly wrong, then that is just what AI does very frequently. That's dangerous to people. Genuinely. Giving them the wrong information about what they need for their body can harm them or kill them at worst. Like I said, my sister is someone that could be hurt by this. I don't want to think of that. I don't want to think of my sister dead or dying or even just hurt from this sort of thing. I have lived with her my entire life, obviously, and I've seen her get taken out by high blood sugar sometimes. I remember one time she had to hurry over to the ER because it had gotten so bad one time because she got the stomach bug. The stomach bug can kill my sister because she's throwing up and she's already put in those carbs, so the insulin's in her body. This poses a danger. This poses a danger to so many people. And that's why I'm scared of it. That's why I'm scared of AI. Because it's hurting real people in severe, severe ways. regardless of what some researcher who definitely should be smarter than me is saying, I've chilled out a little bit. But I find it really scary. I don't like the idea of my sister, or anyone in the same position as my sister, ending up getting hurt. Thanksgiving break is something that just happened, and I was talking to my sister, because she was home as well for it, and I told her, hey, I wrote this essay very recently, and like a little section of it is about you. And she was like, how so? And I told her, well, it was an essay about AI and food and how there's a lot of danger there, how if somebody were to read and trust the nutritional information given on a recipe, and you're a type 1 diabetic, you put that in as your amount of carbs, and you're given that amount of insulin, you can get hurt, you really badly hurt. And she said she never even thought of that. And that she probably wouldn't have the skill set needed to identify that it was AI in the first place. And that's part of why it scares me so much. My sister, she's just a little older than me, she's very young, and I feel like our generation either really gets AI or really doesn't. Shrug, it's scary to think that, and obviously there's a lot of older diabetics who maybe wouldn't understand that something could be AI at all, thought wouldn't cross their heads, and there's plenty of people who just wouldn't get it. Some people just don't get it. But even if you don't get it, it's still going to be dangerous to you. And that's why I'm scared of AI. There are too many lives that are put in danger from the things that it can do. And I just can't stand that. Sarky. AI and food, when working together, it seems like it can all just be fun and silly, and I'd love for it to be that way. I'd love for it to all just be this fun, silly thing with the videos, even if, like I said, there's ethical concerns there. A lot of amazing creators are having their work taken and scraped. But there's very little danger in that. It's not that scares me, even if it's uncanny and weird and strange. And the recipes in isolation, yes, can be dangerous. Very much so. And the nutritional information definitely is, though. The recipes and nutritional information, that is what is scary when it comes to AI and food. I just can't help but think of the people who are at risk. I just can't help but think about the people who they eat just something, anything that was made from an AI recipe. They put in those nutritional facts and then bam. That's it. They're done. Which is depressing. Anyways, guys, that was the YouTube video. Just drop a like below, leave a comment, and make sure to smash the subscribe button. Oh, we're trying to get to 10 billion subscribers.